Yeah.
I'm good?
Yep. Just so we know, the battery life's not very high though, so we might not all get the same.
Wow. Well, good morning, class. Today we're going to talk about the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is part of the Constitution, and these are the 10 rights which our founding fathers deemed most essential, the ones that they fought and lobbied each other to keep in the Constitution, and the ones that serve as the basis for the freedoms that we as Americans enjoy. I wanted to introduce you to the Bill of Rights in ways that would seem a little more relevant to your life. I know the 18th century is a long time ago, and it's not necessarily something we can all connect with, you know, Paul Revere and George Washington. So I've tried to make these rights something that you can see in your everyday lives. All right, let's begin. Freedom of speech, press, religion, and petition. You probably know what the first few terms are, but petition is your right to ask the government to change something that you disagree with. And if you're looking at this image, and you might wonder why I picked it, it's because this man in the photo is exercising 3 of his rights simultaneously. Can anyone guess which 3 rights he's using right now? Yes?
He is exercising his right of freedom of speech.
Yes. The other 2?
So, exercising or pleading for the right to freedom of religion.
That's right. And
freedom to assemble?
Petition. He's asking the government, he's taking part in a protest against the government. He's petitioning the government to change and having a really bad hair day at the same time. Now this is the freedom that you hear a lot about, and if you're going to relate freedoms to your life, this is the one that's going to come to you most immediately, because we as Americans love our opinions, we love to talk, and so freedom of speech is very important. And freedom of the press, it applies a lot to what can be said, like on the internet, for example. In certain countries, such as China, they will take down blogs and news sites that post things the government disagrees with. In theory, that doesn't happen here. Freedom of religion is something else that we as Americans are very proud of and take very seriously. Go ahead. Okay, now this is one of the more controversial amendments that you might have seen and heard about, is the right to bear arms. This is controversially interpreted. A lot of people read this to say that you are part of a well-regulated militia. That means you are in sort of a National Guard type organization, and that's where your right to bear arms comes from. But it's more commonly and broadly interpreted to mean the government cannot take away your guns. And the gun rights lobby in this country has been highly successful in the last generation, and the right to bear arms is almost a judicial absolute right now in this country. And I wanted you to look at this picture and possibly think of the issue in some ways that you might not have before. Number 3, this concerns quartering soldiers, and this might seem like something that you probably don't think about a lot. It's something that maybe happened back in the War of 1812 or the Revolutionary War, you know, when the British would put the redcoats in so-and-so's house, and she couldn't do anything about it, and the redcoats ate all of her apple pie and drank all of, you know, the wine she had stored up. And it seems kind of antiquated. But I wanted you to look at this picture and realize that this picture is from 2005. These are U.S. Marines during the Battle of Fallujah, when the U.S. military went in to take out the Shiite forces in the city. They literally took over this person's home, and this is the family's master bedroom. So somewhere right now, this husband and wife have fled their home, and there are 2 GIs in combat boots sleeping in their bed. And if you think that couldn't happen here, think about the times that the National Guard have been called out in different situations, like after Hurricane Katrina. It's not that far away from our world. Number 4 is search and seizure. And I chose this photo because it reminded me of a song that some of you might have listened to at one time or another, called 99 Problems by Jay-Z. A lot of what he's dealing with in that song is when he gets pulled over by the police on the side of the road, and the cop says, "Do you mind if I take a look around your car? You know, do you have a gun on you? I know a lot of you do." And he asserts his rights to the police officer, and the rights that he's basing on are this very amendment, number 4, that you cannot unlawfully search and seize someone's property without prior warrant or cause. And that's the whole point of the song, is he's telling the judge, well, you know, if you want to come out and search my car, you're going to need a warrant for that. To which the cop replies, well, I'm going to bring the dog out. And that's one of the ways that this right has been interpreted. No, the police cannot search your car without a warrant, but they can't have a dog walk around your car, and that creates probable cause that the dog sniffs drugs. Number 5, this deals with prosecution, and the next few amendments also deal with various aspects of the judicial system and your rights relating to it. This was obviously something that was very important to the framers, coming from the system that they had. They had certain protections they had enjoyed under the Magna Carta, which is the British law, and they wanted to carry that over and expand that in their new country. And this says that you can't be tried for any serious crime without a grand jury meeting first to decide whether there's enough evidence for a trial. And if the jury decides you are innocent, the government can't try you again with another jury. And this is one of the reasons which I picked this photo that you might remember from earlier this year. This was a woman not a lot of people thought should have received the verdict she did, but it's her right under the Constitution, under the system, that the state of Florida cannot try Casey Anthony again under the same charges, even though probably the majority of people in Florida thought that she should be tried again. This is a protection that sometimes applies to people who are not very popular. These are your trial rights that you have. If you should be found by a grand jury, that there's enough evidence to put you on trial. It's that they can't keep you in jail for an undue length of time without trying you. This is something that's come up a bit with the prisoners at Guantanamo, how long a person can be held before they are presented with the evidence against them and given a chance to defend themselves. If you have a right to have your case decided by a jury of your peers, that doesn't mean that the people are exactly like you in terms of their race, gender, or background, but reasonably so. And your attorney, if you have one appointed by the court or you hire one, will have the right to contest who's on the jury so that you get a fair trial. And in this illustration, the jury is depicted as silhouettes, because that's another part of our system, is that the jury's identity is protected. This mostly has to do with witness intimidation. You don't want somebody, going after the jury's family and saying, you better not find him guilty. This goes on. This is very similar to the last amendment. This says that when you have a civil trial, this is more like when someone sues you rather than when it's you versus the government, that you also have the right to a jury. And this stamp, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. When you get older, when you're out in the real world, you will get jury duty notices, and then you will go around and ask all your friends for good excuses on how to get out of jury duty, which is usually you walk up to the bench and say, I hate all policemen, or something like that, and they let you go. This picture, I hope doesn't upset anybody. This was a very traumatic thing for the United States and its image in the world in the early stages of the Iraq War. As you can see there's a U.S. soldier that looks like he's clipping his fingernails and just sort of ignoring the scene he and his buddies have created, where they've put a hooded man up on a box and hooked his fingers and other parts of his body up to electrical wires. That's something that would never be legal for an American to do to another American inside this country as part of the judicial process. And, it's something we should all be very thankful for, considering the history of torture in this country and in the world. These are additional rights, and this is a wide open interpretation of this. This could mean almost anything, and it has, over different points in history, been interpreted to mean a lot of things, and it's inspired a lot of civil rights causes that have gone from it. And this says that just because these rights are listed in the Constitution, that doesn't mean you have other rights too. And this here is Proposition 8 in California, which is about gay marriage. And although that was a state issue, they were arguing basically under the equal protection reading of the Constitution, meaning that the law applies evenly to everybody. And lastly, this photo is very cheesy and corny, but how else can you really illustrate states' rights without a map? So you can see California, Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, and a few other random Dakotas are just all there saluting the we the people, which is the Constitution, which contains the Bill of Rights. And this says that anything the Constitution doesn't say that Congress can do should be left up to the states or the people. And this is a sort of implied powers argument, and this is why some states have different laws than other states, and this has really come into play with things like what they call Obamacare, whether it's up to the federal government to tell you how to get your health care, or whether each state has the right under this to decide its own way. You know, it determines how much power Washington has over you versus how much power the capital of your state has over you. Okay, that's the basic information that I wanted to present you with on the Bill of Rights, and now we're going to move to a class discussion.